I'm Camille Abbe. In this series, I'm going to explore the vibrant culture of the Tuscan countryside. Together, we'll visit some of the artisans, chefs, and farm holiday inns the Italians call agriturismo that all contribute to making Tuscany such an enchanting region. In this episode, I'll start with a visit to the towns of Greve and Panzano in the central region of Tuscany, called the Chianti. During the Middle Ages, the powerful rivals Florence and Siena often battled for control of the Chianti hills. The numerous castles, towers, and fortified farmhouses testify to the warfare that once came as regularly as the seasons. Now, 600 years after Siena's defeat, the Chianti is peaceful and a favorite destination for travelers seeking wine, food, and a romantic holiday. The historic center of the region's wine trade is the bustling town of Greve. Its old square is lined with elegant shops and cafes, and while it can be a little touristy, it's also genuinely charming. It's also the home of La Cantine del Greve, a wine store with a little twist. The twist is the house debit card that's made especially for the store's special wine dispensers. Try, because the whole idea is that you try the wine and then you can buy the wine by the bottle. All buttons light up. Here we go. And here's your little tasting. So in between your tastings, you really want to rinse your glass because this leftover stuff will make the next wine taste different than it should. This is fun. You could stay in here all day. Visiting the cantina is a great way to figure out what kinds of wine, what styles of wine you like, and also experiment with bottles, taste bottles in different price ranges because the most expensive wine might not be the wine that you like. Is my card empty? Sometimes the world can be very cruel. I just learned a hard lesson that it's really easy to drink 10 euros worth of wine in no time at all. This that you see was a gift. So that's a lesson for you all. Have fun, drink carefully. Ciao. After wine, the second passion of Tuscans is meat, especially the preserved and salted meats known as salumi. Stefano Bencista is an 8th-generation descendant of Giovata Falorni, who, in 1712, founded Macelleria Falorni.
La finocchiona, che è il pezzo più tipico del nostro paese, fatta con l'aggiunta di semi di finocchio selvatico, che gli dà questo profumo. Quando uno...
This is so beautiful. I mean, look, it's like, put it on the wall, it's artwork. Here's some little sausages, salume di cinghiale, wild boar. Hello. It's not nice, sorry. You thought it was a Cuban cigar, but actually, it's a Toscanello, and you still can't bring it into the States. This is so nice. I don't know what this stuff is either. And where you find salumi, cheese is sure to be nearby. This is a personal favorite of mine, pecorino al tartufo, truffle pecorino di fossa. That's a stinky one.
Giù c'è questa segreta, che ora non è più una segreta, ma è stata adoperata. Questa ha avuto il suo durante la Grande Guerra, durante la guerra 15-18, perché la mia nonna faceva la ghiacciaia ad ammasso, perché prima non c'erano frigoriferi e d'inverno ci metteva la neve, metteva tutta la neve, e con la neve riusciva a fare freddo per 6 mesi e metteva il grasso che poi vendeva all'esercito per fare le munizioni.
Look at these. Look at all that pepper and herbs. That's pancetta. Yum, fragrant pancetta.
E ci sono cinghiali. Ci sono cinghiali. E dobbiamo cinghiali per fare i salumi. Di qua.
It's really a beautiful store. It's almost sort of a museum. The name Tuscany comes from the Etruscans, a sophisticated and artistic people who dominated central Italy from around the 9th century BC. Even Rome was once ruled by Etruscan kings. In 509 BC, the Romans expelled their Etruscan king and founded the republic that would eventually conquer Tuscany and all of Europe. As the Romans settled the Etruscan lands, they founded new cities, including Lucca, Siena, and Florence. Eventually, the Roman Empire collapsed, leading to the long stagnation of the Middle Ages. The Crusades of the 12th and 13th centuries invigorated Tuscany, and it was one of the first places in Europe where trade, industry, and the arts were revived. The wealth of the Tuscan city-states allowed an artisan class to develop, which led to the Renaissance and eventually to the achievements of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and many others. For a time, Tuscany was the center of the civilized world. In Chianti, that legacy of innovation and inspiration is expressed in the culture of wine. Every fall during harvest, this group of winemakers and grape growers gather to eat, talk about the vintage, and drink each other's wines. Here, wine is appreciated as a true work of art. Until as recently as 30 years ago, most grapes were grown and harvested by tenant farmers who received a portion of the crop as pay. But today, workers are paid in cash and come from all over Italy and even as far away as Africa to work the harvest. On a clear September morning, I visited the vineyards of Castello di Verrazzano, perched above the town of Greve. The Chianti region is home to Italy's most famous wine, Chianti Classico. The grapes for Chianti Classico can be grown only here, and only from specific varieties, mostly Sangiovese. The wineries here also experiment with other varieties of grapes, including Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. Some of the resulting wines, known as Super Tuscans, have become more sought after and expensive than the traditional Chianti Classico. The quality of the grapes can vary dramatically from year to year, depending mostly on the weather conditions during the growing season. The winemaker's most critical decision is when to begin harvesting the grapes. It's essential to carefully monitor their condition and coming weather patterns in order to create the best possible wine. It's very important that the picked grapes don't sit long before going to the winery to be crushed. At the winery, the grapes are dumped into a crusher.
the stems are separated out and the fresh grape juice is moved into large fermentation vats. Wild yeast then converts the sugar in the grapes into alcohol. This winemaker is testing the sugar level in the newly pressed juice to help him decide the best way to age and blend this particular batch of wine. Verrazzano is a classic Chianti estate. The castle is famous for its 15th century occupant, Giovanni da Verrazzano. He was the first European to enter New York Harbor and lend his name to the narrows that separate Brooklyn from Staten Island. My guide, Paolo Facina, pointed out 3 stones on the wall that came from the base of the Verrazzano Bridge, which, in turn, has a few stones from the castle in its foundation. The name Verrazzano comes from an old dialect and means place of the wild boar. And while they are numerous in the hills, the current owners raise a few of their own in a wooded preserve near the castle. This is the Vinsanteria, where the process of making the sweet dessert wine called Vinsanto begins. These Malvasia and Trebbiano grapes will hang for several months and lose about 60% of their water by dehydration before they are crushed and aged for years in small barrels. Down below the castle, the cellars are cool year-round, allowing the wine to age gracefully and slowly in oak casks until bottling. In the cantina, some of the bottled wine is stored in the shape of a pyramid, which, I was told, was done in the past to make it obvious if someone took a bottle without the owner's permission. Just a few miles away is the small estate of Fattoria Casaloste. Giovanni Dorsi and his wife Emilia own their land and do much of the work themselves, which is common among wine producers throughout the region today.
We prefer make the harvest with hands because in this way we can choose the better grapes. But in this here is not possible to choose because all grapes is perfect.
These perfect grapes are picked by local students who come by to work for a few hours after school. In a few years, it will be Giovanni and Emilia's children picking the grapes that the family grows with such pride and care. Heading south on the Via Chiantigiana, the road that traverses Chianti, I found the village of Penzano. Penzano is celebrating the harvest with its annual wine fair. It's a chance for winemakers to meet the people who buy and drink their wines. Giovanni Dorsi is here. He's checking a bottle for quality. Penzano is also home to the most famous butcher in Tuscany, Dario Cecchini. He gained notoriety when, as a protest against new EU guidelines, he held a mock funeral for Tuscany's beloved bistecca fiorentina. On the day of the Penzano Fair, his shop is filled with visitors, coming to drink free wine and taste specialties such as his magnificent porchetta, a traditional Tuscan pork roast stuffed with herbs and garlic. Dario has memorized all of Dante's Divine Comedy and has been known to recite passages when the mood strikes him. Down the street from Dario's is another Penzano landmark, the leather workshop of Carlo Fagiani.
This is good. The client is happy.
Everything feels so good. This is adorable. Even better. Yeah, this one is so pretty.
His specialty is custom shoes, with dozens of designs to choose from.
This is actually stingray. I think it's just so beautiful. So when you come to the workshop, you have your foot measured, and your shoes are made for you by hand in only 5 days. So I'm going to get a measurement just in case I find something I like. No shoes? No shoes, okay, both feet. A few quick measurements, and we've discovered I have the perfect foot. Not really. We'll find out how many different colors and styles we can choose from.
We have every leather you like.
The famous pink lizard. Ah, yes. Che bella colore.
We have many possibilities. Enjoy your fantasy, and we can make for you what you like.
Ah, that's the best.
After each client's measurements are taken, Carlo modifies a standard shoe mold, or last. His son then uses patterns to cut the leather. And the various pieces are glued and stitched together. Finally, the leather upper is fitted to the last, and the heel and sole are attached. The dynamic father-son duo also lead a local jazz group. If you express an interest, you just might be invited to their next gig. You can't go far in Chianti without finding an agriturismo. They're all different. Some rent out apartments or entire villas, while some operate like small hotels, and others have a style all their own.
Porter Terreno is a special kind of agriturismo right in the heart of Chianti. It's a place where you can dine together family style, and you can sit with people from all around the world. Usually you meet people from Canada, Mexico, Germany, everywhere.
It's a great opportunity to share stories and learn about what other guests have discovered during their day. Staying at Porter Terreno is like staying with friends. Friends who just happen to live in a beautiful Tuscan farmhouse. Next, I traveled west to the towns of Tavernelle and Trebia. Everywhere you look in Tuscany, you'll see terracotta. In roof tiles, sculptures, and the elegant orchaia, which are traditional olive oil containers often used as decorative objects. I wanted to see how terracotta is made, so I visited the small factory of Francesco del Re in the town of Tavernelle. Terracotta literally means cooked earth, and the best sources for terracotta are the natural clay pits in the nearby town of Impruneta. The mixture of clay and rocks is crushed into a fine powder and then mixed with water. It's then ready to turn into anything, in this case, an horchata. It's going very fast, making the base, and then there's another layer, and then you basically have to wait for that to dry before you can put another layer on, or it would all buckle and be a disaster. So it takes about 2-3 months to get a full adult-sized horchata. And then, it's like a month and a half to dry, and then you can fire it.
But the material is very strong. And so we can guarantee this for 20 years against the water.
Francesco also occasionally casts bronze, and on this day I was lucky to see it happen. Bronze is a mixture of mostly copper and a little tin, which is melted at 1800 degrees, then poured into a hard sand mold. After cooling for a few hours, the mold is cracked off and a sturdy bronze shape is ready to be polished. Bronze is useful, but not exactly mesmerizing. So I visited a jewelry designer in Cirbaya, whose creations, I'd been told, are truly special. I'm here in the home and workshop of Orlando and Palladino Orlandini, and I'm getting a tour of their workshop and also a little try-on session of some of the beautiful gold, platinum, diamond things that they've made.
Non abbiamo lase, non abbiamo stampi, ma ogni pezzo viene fatto uno per uno e realizzato completamente a mano, come dicevo.
The jewelry making process begins by melting gold into basic forms that are then shaped to suit the particular piece being made. Orlando has developed a number of machines for this work. They can make gold wire or roll the gold into sheets. Some of the pieces take months to make. Orlando's craftspeople are highly trained, and many have worked with him for years. Finally, I got to see the finished jewelry, and I have to say, well, I really don't know what to say. Oh, it's got platinum and diamonds everywhere. Nice. $300 grams of platinum.
Come un tessuto, vedi come.
Oh, that's fun. Look at this. This is just not messing around. These people know what they're doing. This is my new friend. We're gonna go home together and live happily ever after. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful.